All right. Hello and welcome everyone to the Transform Your Relationship show. I'm Laura Rubinstein here with the amazing Dr. Rhoberta Shaler. Hi, Rhoberta.
Good morning, Laura. What a wonderful day to talk about difficult things.
Yes, and that's what we do. We don't do the elephant in the room. We point to it and we talk about it. And today's no different. I love this idea. We're going to talk about, well, I'm not sure I love it, but I love that we're going to talk about trust and giving second chances, like giving trust and giving second chances when it's wise to do so, when it's not. Because I think we probably all can relate to having a situation where we trusted someone only to be disappointed. We gave a second chance to somebody only to be disappointed, and the vice versa. We trust somebody and we gave them a second chance and that was okay. So where do you want to start with that?
Well, I suggested this topic today because I just done a big video on rebuilding trust with a colleague of mine, Tracy Malone, and it was posting this morning. So there's always that. If somebody wants to go and look at it, just go and like
Where
my
would they go?
Facebook page. And the Facebook page is Rhoberta Shaler, PhD, the Relationship Help Doctor. But it's there for you. But why it came up is because if you're with a healthy individual and they make a mistake or they do something you really don't like, it's often a really good idea to have a good conversation about it and try again. But if you're with a person who and hurts you and abuses you and demeans you, and then you get angry and you say no more, and then they come back and they say, "Oh, please, 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 I'll be good." Not so wise. So, how to calibrate that, I think, is worthwhile conversation.
And where would one start? Because shall we look for a pattern and not be fooled that if we see them breaking trust with somebody else, or they've broken trust with us more than once in the past, do we give them a second chance or a third chance or a fourth chance? I mean, where do you cut the line off? Um, and or do you just accept that that's what they do and know you can't trust them? You can be in relationship with them to some degree, but you cannot trust them, and it does not make sense to give a second chance because it's always going to be another, they always want another chance.
Well, good questions. And there are some people that you don't trust with information. You might enjoy their company, but you would never tell them your secrets.
Yeah.
You would never make yourself vulnerable. So there's that level of trust as well, and how to calibrate that. So there are a lot of things to talk about because you have to be wise enough to recognize what's going on. So if we go back to what I said originally about this, if you're with somebody who constantly demeans you or wears you down, tears you down, says nasty things about you, talks behind your back, particularly if they're your partner or your parent, no, those pesky hijackals I talk about, you should come to know that it's not wise to believe that there's this great person in there somewhere that only if you can love them and nurture them and trust them into behaving differently, then you'll have a magical relationship. You won't. But they have this manipulative way of becoming just who you want them to be when they think you're going to leave them. And they revert to that person that they were on their best days to try and get you to think, this is who I really am. I'm not this person over here who's hurting you all the time. I am really this wonderful person you met. And we get kind of hooked on hope that that great person's going to come back and show up, and we get, hmm, you know, hauled back.
Right.
So there are several scenarios that we're talking about here, and if it rings a bell that you have been forgiving and revisiting and re-relating with somebody over and over, it's time to really wake up and say, hey, this is a pattern. Maybe I am misplacing my trust or my hope, and or both, And maybe today's conversation will help you do that. What do you think, Laura?
Well, I have a couple of thoughts because I think the people who are manipulative and always want second chances make you think that the issue's with you, not with them. Like, I promise you just don't understand me. Like, so it's my problem that I don't understand you, that you broke this promise, right? They may say I'm sorry, but they don't take responsibility. And if you feeling like it's your responsibility to give them a second chance, it's not. It's their responsibility to earn your trust. So it has to, I think it really requires that we figure out what builds trust. What do you need? So, okay, I give you a second chance, but under these circumstances, you know,
Or with these boundaries.
right,
Like, I will give you a second chance, but if this, or that happens, we're done. Right? So you put it back in their court and you say, do we have an agreement? Because I'm going to hold my boundaries. Like, it was, just the other day, I do so much media, I don't remember where, but I did a whole thing on boundaries because we need to really think about that all the time. Yes,
all
it
the
was
time.
on Save Your Sanity on my podcast. And if you don't set clear boundaries, then the other person is like free fall. They can free range through your life and, nothing happens. There's no consequences. But if you get really clear about what's okay with you, what's not okay, and then you learn to express it, and you know how I always say, learn to communicate in ways that are totally kind and totally honest at the same time. So you learn how to communicate it and you communicate it. And you ask for questions, are we clear? Is this good? And the person maybe asks a question or two. Most people who are difficult will say, yeah, 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 right.
Hmm.
And then you try it once and then they do it again. Okay, then that second time you add a consequence. Like, I want to be respected. I want to feel respected. What makes me feel respected is this. What makes me feel disrespected is this. Can we make an agreement that we'll be respectful to each other? So you have that conversation. The person says, yeah, yeah, yeah. And the next time that they're disrespectful, you say, we had an agreement that this wouldn't happen. So therefore, I'm telling you the next time it happens, I am leaving the conversation. I will not stay in this conversation. And the next time you do it, you don't give them another chance.
And here's the thing. I love what you always have said, and I've had the same philosophy is believe what they do, not what they say.
Right.
Right. And so for me, it's really important to do what I say. And if I make a boundary and set an agreement, it's important that I keep that agreement. Otherwise, I'm no better off than somebody else who's not trustworthy.
Right. Right.
So, I don't even need sometimes to say we had an agreement, so I'm leaving. I just do the thing that I promised I'd do. Leave. If they broke their promise, I keep mine. Like I keep my agreement to the promise, which I
Right.
and
And
it
that's the third step.
yeah.
Right. What I was saying was the first step is you say how you feel and you say what you want and you ask for an agreement about that. If they then transgress that, then you say, okay, this didn't work very well. If it happens again, I'm going to leave. Then the third step is when it happens again, you leave. Right. So with reasonable human beings, step one is usually enough. Like, this doesn't work for me. What I would prefer is this. And they go, oh, I didn't know. And they'll get good with it. And even if they start to do that thing again, they go, oh, sorry, I remember. But people who have those difficulties are people who really don't care. They'll say they'll do it, but they won't do it. So then you have to add the consequence. That's when you learn that they have no intention of keeping their agreement. Then when you add the consequence, then it's in your court. You must do what you said you will do. Otherwise, your integrity is out of line. And so I just want to make that clear because there are 3 steps in that.
I had an experience as a very young person. I was in the band. Actually twirled a rifle, and we had band practice at a certain time, and I was maybe 10 minutes late. And apparently, I had made an agreement that I'd be on time. And, I had some teacher who kept me, and I needed to do some homework or find out something about an assignment. And then I went out to the field to do practice and I was turned away. And I'm like, and I tried to explain myself. And he's like, you're late. You need to go. You cannot join us now. And I was just like mortified. I was like, how could this be possible? I had no concept that, me taking care of something that, was, a higher value to me, which were my grades. But I still made it to the practice, even though I was like 10 minutes late, would cost me such humiliation. It felt like mortified, like I can't do what I
Yeah.
said I wanted to do, even though I'm late. And it was a huge lesson that I'll never forget and really made an impact on me on keeping my word. And that, and basically all he said is, you made an agreement and you broke it. And this is the consequence. And I'm like,
Right.
got it. Okay. Like I was mortified and devastated, but you
Sure.
know, I can see like that is how we work in life. And it was a great lesson to make me a better person and to make me keep agreements. Because when we're not keeping agreements with people, there's no trust, there's no relationship, there's no fulfillment, there's always worry. You're always in eggshells. You're not sure. You can't enjoy yourself. So let's keep our word. And, if you're someone prone to emergencies and that, if I have those kind of people in my life, I know that and then I don't make agreements with them to meet them on days that, I otherwise could be doing something else. I only make agreements with them when I know if they cancel, if something tragic happens, then I'm okay with it.
Okay,
And
let me go back and ask you a question if I might interrupt.
okay.
Okay, thinking about that example that you had and the learning that you had and what we just talked about, what would you now say to the teacher who wanted to help hold you up?
Um, oh, I probably wouldn't even have I probably would have got right out to the field. I'm sure from then on, I would have found a way to get to the field. I don't even know what specific was I in a conversation with someone. I don't remember that specific, but whatever the answer to that is whatever it takes to get on the field by the time I needed to be there. That's how I oriented my day. And or if there was a higher priority, I was going to skip that practice completely, and take whatever
Mm.
consequence. I knew whatever consequence, like, oh, I couldn't perform at the next event. Like, if
Right.
you miss X amount of practices, you can't perform. Fine. So, when you know the rules, it makes your decision making easy.
Right. And to add to the conversation and why I asked the question was even as a young person, I think it's worth learning this lesson that had that teacher who was talking to you about your grades been, like we need to talk now, it would have been possible to be able to go to that teacher after this learning and say, I really want to talk to you. I'd love to do that. Can we do that tomorrow after school? I've made a commitment to be on time to the field right now. And this kind of communication in our life is so important because we just told that, in this example, we just told that teacher that I'm a person of integrity and I keep my word. I'll keep my word to you and I'll be here after school tomorrow, but I have to go now.
Right.
And, it's a great example because we need to be living our values every moment, not just when it's convenient, but when it's difficult too. And so, if keeping your word and building trust and being in alignment are important things to you, then this is a great conversation to kind of ask yourself, how am I doing with that?
Structure is freedom. This may sound like, I don't want to put boundaries on anybody. I don't want to live my life with boundaries. That sounds so confining. It's the opposite. It's
Yeah.
like if you say you're going to do something, do it because life works really well then. It makes you make better decisions too if you know you've got to keep your word,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
It's like, oh, I made that decision. I better keep my word. And if I don't, there's a consequence. It's not saying what it is to be human is to break our word. Like, I know that is a given, but what it is to have a happier life and good relationships is to keep your word more often, as often as you possibly can, and
Yeah.
really build that muscle of keeping your word, and then build the muscle of making the better decisions in terms of what you're going to make promises for.
Yeah, and I think that last bit was really important. I want to highlight that. Don't make agreements if you can't keep them. Like,
Ding,
don't
ding, 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 ding,
hope
ding, ding,
that
ding.
you're going to be able to do it, or don't give a false promise that I'll keep the agreement and then, you got your fingers crossed behind your back. It's better to put some space in it, to say, no, I can't do that. What I can do is this, maybe negotiate a little bit. Find out, but be truthful and real. I'd much rather have somebody say no to me than to say, well, I'll do my best to get there, and then find out that we wasted our time because they're not there, right?
Yeah, and a lot of people feel demanded on to make a decision or say yes, and it breaks the tension. Like, oh yeah, I can do that. Yeah, 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 no problem. That can lead into a passive aggressive, don't you think, or some sort of a weird manipulative. They say
Yeah.
yes, but they never keep their word, and then they're always getting the result of somebody being frustrated with them, and that's like this loop-de-loop problem that becomes a manipulation thing. Let's get out of that whole pattern, start seeing what you're doing or what you're the recipient of doing or how you enable that pattern. Like if everybody would just take a little bit more responsibility for keeping their word and keeping their consequences in place and being clear on what the consequences are when somebody breaks their word with you or with them. Like I just stopped communicating with people once they break their word too many times. It's like, I don't have time for that. It's
Yeah.
wasting my time. It's just, I love you, but I can't be in relationship with you if that's the mode you're in. Our relationship just go away.
Yeah, and you may think you're being accommodating and giving them wiggle room and being understanding, and inside you're building resentment,
Big
and that
time.
fire is growing, and you're tending the fire by not speaking up. Not saying, that doesn't work for me. Here's
Yeah.
how I understood it. I thought we were meeting at 1 o'clock. I did question whether it would fit. You told me that you were sure you could make it work. Do you remember that conversation? Great. Well, this is the third time it's happened, and this can't continue. What can we do to make this better? If you're in a healthy relationship, you can ask that question. What can we do to not find ourselves here again? But if you're in an unhealthy relationship, they'll go, oh, well, I know you always see things as a problem, right?
Or they'll go into their sob story and make you feel very sorry for them. Like, ah, but I
Right.
had so many things. The kid threw up, the dog barked, somebody jumped out a window, like everything goes wrong. And don't you feel bad for me?
Yeah, yeah, I do. And the telephone is still right there. Quick call, quick text would have solved the problem, right?
Yeah.
Right? Even though you're giving him the solution right at that moment, you're saying, no, I don't buy what you're saying to me because it's not accurate.
Yeah.
you
What was
know?
preventable with regard to your promise to me?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
like I said, promises get broken, agreements get broken, but we have to communicate them or we take a consequence. We understand what the consequence is, and it works so much better that way. You'll be so much happier. Now,
Mhm.
if anybody who's watching has questions, comments, you agree with this, you disagree, I'm monitoring our comments here on the Facebook group at not the group, the page at transformyourrelationships.com. So feel free to post them in there because I know this is a hot topic and nobody likes to be canceled on. Nobody likes to cancel. I can't imagine people like to cancel. They have a habit of canceling on or disappointing or breaking trust. And, I use the term purposely in our title, like giving and trust and giving second chances. I don't think trust is given. I've heard it many
I
people.
do.
Well, I think it has, in my world, it really has to be earned because I feel
Yeah,
like,
I don't. Um, but
okay,
go ahead.
but here's why it works for me. I can I can be open to you being trustworthy. Do I trust you until I see that you've done a few things to demonstrate it to me? I I don't not trust you, but I don't give you my trust. You don't have you get my somebody says, well, what do you think of so and so? Well, I don't know that person. And so
Mhm.
people will ask me, what do you think of this? And I'm like, I am not willing to endorse anyone until I know them and I know I can trust them. Um, just because somebody says, New York Times says they're woo-woo, I'm like, great. I need to find out for myself. It's not that I don't believe they could be. I don't give them a chance, but I don't say I give you my trust.
Hmm.
Um, it's really hard. I mean, even with a doctor, it's like I go to them and I say, I know you've had this track record, this track record. You need to still do something that makes it, like we get, how people who are very spiritual or intuitive, they're like, I get a hit on that this, I can trust that. That's earning it to some degree because that's their energy. But there's got to be something that gives me the yes to them versus you're in front of me and I get nothing, but I'm supposed to trust you.
Yeah. Well, I think you've given several examples that may have variations on things, but I'll tell you why I give everybody my trust first till they prove to me that I can't trust them.
Hmm.
And I think it's a gift that you give. Like I'm expecting to trust you. I'm expecting that you will show me that you're trustworthy. Yeah, have I been burned? Yeah, sure, lots of times. 'Cause I've lived a long time, but um I would rather be that person that gives them the absolute trust that they will show up as a wonderful human, and then be able to calibrate really carefully and early on when this starts to go sideways, than to be wary, you know. But again, to that energy piece, I'm very sensitive, you're very sensitive. If somebody gives me the moment that I go, even in the first conversation, okay, I'm going to back off too. Like, oh, no, I think, we're going to talk a lot more before I'm going to get into anything with you. So it may be a moot point. We may be discussing the same thing, but I just like to think of trust as a gift, because I deal with couples frequently, and somebody will have done something that will have broken trust, and yet these people loved each other enormously and they had a great life, and all of a sudden there's this wrinkle. Well, they may be very hurt and they may feel very betrayed, but if that only happened one time, we want to rebuild the trust, because generally I could trust you and then you did this thing. So how do we rebuild the trust? How definitely the person who transgresses in a relationship, whatever your agreements are in a relationship, the person that transgresses is going to have to walk double time for a while. They're going to have to take it on, rightly so. But after a little while, then that gift of trust has to be opened up again, so that we don't hold the betrayal as ammunition for every time you look sideways. I'm going to say, well, you remember you betrayed me before. Because we have to learn to give that gift again, even if we're feeling a little tentative about it. After you've done some work on the betrayal and whatever happened, I have my clients do that work on it, get really clear about it, get all their questions answered. And then I have to ask the question of the person who was transgressed: are you willing to give that trust again without holding that ammunition all the time? Because you can't get anywhere with somebody who now has the upper hand on you, saying, well, I trusted you before and look what you did. I mean, you cannot open that relationship up in a way that will ever be those three things I talk about: equal, reciprocal, and mutual again. So if you're going to stay together, then you have to get the help to get to a place where you have talked it through enough that you are willing to give the gift of trust again, without holding that ammunition ready to hit them over the head anytime they go slightly sideways in a conversation. And so it's a lot of inner work, and it's very important.
It seems like holding that ammunition is like a security blanket. It's their only way of defending themselves. So if you're going to let go of that, trust again, is there a strategy that one can use to, like, one might say to themselves, I never want to be hurt like that again. And in order to give that trust, I need to know how I can protect myself against that hurt. I mean, is there an answer to that, or do you just say, no, that's not possible? You will have to open yourself up to the possibility of being hurt again, but
Yes, you will.
knowing that, okay, but you didn't die last time. Yes, it hurt.
Exactly.
Yes, it hurt. And guess what? You got through it. And this person you believe, or do you believe? Do you believe this person is ready to be trustworthy again?
Yes. Well, there's a certain way that we have to find out, um, for the person who was hurt, what is it that you really need to hear and see that will allow you to give your trust again? What are the words you need to hear? What would be enough of a penalty? How badly does that person have to feel? And I'm not saying that lightly. I mean, every couple is different. I mean, how what's going on? Sometimes it's layers deep, like they were hurt by their father or their mother or something long ago, and now that's been triggered again, and we have to work through that whole thing before we can come to a place of saying, okay, I'm going to get present with my partner, and I've healed this stuff back here. And so now I'm willing to offer my trust again. Every situation is different. But we do have to, at some point, find out what will it take. I have a client right now. I've worked with them on and off for the last 3, 4 years. And the initial thing that they came with was he had an emotional affair, not a physical affair, an emotional affair. He'd had his they were due to health issues in the family. They were living about 4 hours apart, and so he started to chat with a coworker about the difficulties that he had, and so there was this emotional affair. Well, because she was away taking care of family, she blew it out of proportion and made it into, I don't believe you that you didn't have a physical thing, all that kind of thing. And they recently came back, and he said she's still pulling it out when she wants the upper hand in a conversation. No, you can't do that. You can't do that and say that you love the person and that you have worked it through. You cannot say that and then pull it out when you feel a little bit threatened or unhappy or whatever. Well, I'm not sure I can ever trust you because remember before you talked to this person. No, that's not what emotional grown-ups do. So if you have a betrayal in your primary relationship, you need to get a lot of help to work it through. It's going to be longer than you think. It's not just that issue because it's resonating from other issues and other times in your relationship. And then you work it through. And then you have to be willing to give it up. You're never going to forget it, but you got to be willing to give it up as a topic of conversation and a big club to get the upper hand.
Oh, big concept for a lot of us.
Yeah.
Forgiveness, giving another's chance. Is it worth it? Determining if it is, determining if you can even do that. As I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, well, you know what? Sometimes it's better for me. It might be the better choice to give up the relationship than to give back the trust. And
Yes,
that's
for
a choice.
sometimes it is true. And only you know that answer, but you don't know that answer off the top of your head. You have to stop and consider it. You have to go into the silence and think, okay, what is this relationship about? What are my feelings about it? What's the basis of the relationship? Is it contractual? Is it by agreement? Is it love? Is it expectation? What am I really operating on? And you've got to come clean with yourself. That's why you need the help. And then you need help with communicating that with the other person so that someone is holding the cohesion of the conversation while you get to be you two people. That's what a person like me does, right? And then you work it through if you can. But after you've done your own work internally is the time when you decide if you can and have the interest in having it work out and doing what it takes to work it out,
Yeah.
as opposed to just saying, no, I've added it up. I realized that maybe I don't really think that this is a good way for me to be investing my emotions or my time. So I'm going to let that one go. But I'm going to work through to come to that place where I'm not giving them any real estate in my head or my mind. I mean, that's my definition of forgiveness. You do it for yourself so that you've worked it through and you're not giving them up any real estate in your head or heart anymore.
Yeah. And it is really a gift. Like if we can come to that place when we're confronted with these situations where people have transgressed or broken promises or betrayed, then and there is a process, it's really a gift because we get to do what you said. If we take it on to do the work of like, why would I even attract something like this? Or what is it in my heart that I need to do? Is this an opportunity to learn how to
Right.
forgive in a different way? Or is this an opportunity to learn how to step away from something that's harming me? What is this opportunity and why would it even be in my life? What is the purpose? What is it showing me about me? Like why I got so upset about this. Maybe is this as big a deal as I think, or am I trying to not look at something in myself? I mean, there's all kinds of possibilities. Like you said, it's super personal. I mean, it could be about them, it could be about you, but
Yeah.
ultimately it's something about you. So what is this about yourself that you're given the gift of looking at that you wouldn't have otherwise had? And
Right.
then that word forgiveness, I've heard it put into a phrase which I've adopted is if you can put it into a phrase like, thank you for giving me blank. So what is it
Mm.
that is that gift here? And then I go further and I say, so that I can do blank. Like, thank you for giving me the gift of seeing what betrayal is so I can go forward and have a great relationship with someone who would not betray me. Like that could be a possibility.
Lovely.
Or
Yes.
so I can learn how to heal from betrayal and help others heal from betrayal. Like there's all kinds of possibilities with the process of the gift that you're getting from the situation, which can help going back to the earlier part of our conversation with letting go of that ammunition and being able to let that person either in your life or out of your life without taking up that unnecessary real estate that you're talking about in your mind.
Right. So I think we've given a whole lot of great ideas today
Woohoo!
because you have to calibrate, just as Laura was saying, you have to calibrate, do I want to give my time and attention to figuring this out? Am I afraid to give my time and attention that I might learn something? There's a whole lot of pieces there. And yes, we can just go, "Bah, I'm never having anything to do with that person again." But then maybe you didn't learn the lesson that was put in front of you. And so
Exactly.
you're going to have it again and again and again until you do have the courage to look at it. And sometimes you've just been a doormat for a little too long and it's the last straw and you need to go, no more. No, not happening. Right.
Exactly.
So so there's a whole lot to learn there. And I hope that we've given you some great ideas, at least planted some seeds for you to think about the people in your life who may be repeated offenders and how much latitude do you want to give, how much energy do you have to give, and how much love do you want to keep going in that direction, close up and personal. You can love anybody from a distance, so that doesn't have to end, but you may not want to be in close tight relationship with them.
Yeah, so if you need help talking that through, I know, Roberta, you're available at forrelationshiphelp.com. I do hypnosis and have the feminine power cards which support people, as they're going through their processes as well at femininepowercards.com and transformtoday.com. You can see I help people in business too. So we are at time.
Yeah, for sure. And I just want to let folks know that I do have a new program, and it's a membership program. Um, and right now, there's a pre launch price of only $5 a month if you want to be part of the discussion threads and you want to receive my 21 days to empower emotional savvy personal study course delivered by email for 47 days. So the really quick window of time to get in at that $5 level, and you'll stay at that $5 level. So um, certainly at the bottom level, you'll stay at the $5 level. So You find that at forrelationshiphelp.com/circles, because the different levels are called different kinds of optimized circles. So,
Beautiful.
if you have an issue and you want to talk, that's a great place to talk.
We'll see you there and see you in a couple of weeks for the Transform Your Relationships live show next time. Please add your questions. Thank you, Kathy Demers, for your comment on the watch party. And I agree totally. It's, when you're not keeping your agreements, your self-esteem is going down. So
That's
keep your
right.
agreements and build up your self-esteem. Bye for now.
Bye bye.